Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Surge of the Brawler Cafe. We have been away for a while, but we are getting back into things, finishing off these last two Battle Brawlers card breakdowns, and then we are getting into Resurgence stuff right after that. So let's start. Starting with Pyrus, of course. Starting with our action cards, this is the only faction from Battle Brawlers that does not have an awesome rare action card. So we're diving right into super rares. First, we have Cinder Coil. 5 cost to destroy all enemy heroes. It's pretty high cost, but a hero wipe has the potential to be good at some point. This is the sort of card that would probably be played a bunch in side decks if we had one. Especially since Pyrus is becoming a lot better post-Resurgence. And hero-based decks are also becoming a lot better post-Resurgence. It's that sort of card. If big, heavy hero decks become really common, then you might want to main deck this, but as it is, you're better off just carrying Darkus or Ventus and using Garganoid's Gaze or One with Nature. The other super rare is pretty awful. Cyndeus Stand. It's a 2 cost to shuffle any number of cards from your hand into your deck to get damage for each card you shuffled in. So you just manage yourself to get some damage. It's just not good at all. It gets Fury online instantly, I guess, but it's not very good. Inferno Wings, another super rare. This one is quite solid. It's probably the only core removal card that survives the genesis of reroll being introduced to the game. But Inferno Wings is 3 costs. You get plus 300B, and then remove all Bakugan cores from all your opponent's enemy Bakugan, every single one of them, for only 1 cost more than Hot Potato, which is just remove 1 Bakugan core. It's just fantastic. Does a lot to shut down core type based decks, weakens team attacks quite a bit, and you get that little plus 300B boost as well to make it a lot more worth your while in comparison to the 2 cost one. It's not as staple as it once was because reroll happened, but it's still a pretty solid card. Drago's Fury is a rare 2 cost, plus 4 damage. If you're in Fury, you get double strike. This is okay. But you know what, it's just a damage booster, so it's not great. Engulfing Embers is 5 cost for plus 400B, plus 6 damage. A split focus, cost is too high. Furious Blast, 3 cost, plus 6 damage, and it bounces itself if you're in Fury. Just a damage booster, not what you want. Hot Potato, this is what I talked about. This is 2 cost to remove a Bakugan core. In aggro decks, you used to run this, but now when your opponent can just drop Quickfire or a 1 cost reroll, or if they're a fist deck, they can drop Mega Punch. Thanks to that happening in Resurgence, this is just completely worthless. Your opponent will counter it with a card that costs less. Implosion, 6 cost, destroy an enemy energy card, and if you're in Fury, you destroy 2 instead. Cost is way too high. You need to be in Fury for it to really do something. And the effect itself is like a control effect, not the sort of thing that a Fury deck would really want. It's just really bad. Inferno is the mono Pyrus encouraging card. It's 1 cost plus 2 damage for each Pyrus on your team. It's just a damage booster, so obviously it doesn't really create a successful mono strategy. Might of Cyndeus, this is one of the best cards in Pyrus, still in rares by the way. 2 cost plus 1 damage, and this turn the victor is decided by highest damage instead of B power. Now, post Resurgence, this gets a lot weaker because Blinding Ink can negate this on the same turn that it can be played, which is turn 2 of course, but it's still a super strong card and should be going in most decks that include Pyrus. Power Ritual is 1 cost plus 1 energy for each Bakugan that your Bakugan hold, typically not going to be worth it at all. Cycling Warmth, we are now in comments by the way. Cycling Warmth, 2 cost plus 2 damage, and then send it to the bottom of your deck. 2 cost for a 1 cost damage boost. It is obviously not worth, beyond just being a damage booster, and inherently not being worth. Fierce Boost is plus 200B for 2 costs, and then if you're Fury plus 600B is okay, but the weak non-Fury version is pretty garbage. Fiery Rage is 3 costs, plus 200B, and plus 8 damage if you're in Fury. Primarily a damage booster, which we don't want. Fire Boost is the generic 2 costs for plus 400B. Fire Vortex is 6 cost for plus 6 damage, and then Fury plus 12 damage instead. So you need to be in Fury to get the expected value of this card, so quite trash. Fireball, 1 cost plus 3 damage. This is the additional reason why you want to run Cycling Warmth. If you're going to run a damage booster, you run this. Impact Laser, 3 cost plus 7 damage. Why run this when you can run Fireball? Like, it's a smaller boost, but it's better. Lava Boost, 6 cost for plus 900 B. This should be giving us 1200 B at this cost, so obviously not worth. Magma Boost, 4 cost for plus 700 B. Same thing here. This should be giving us 800 B for its cost, so obviously not worth. Meltdown, 3 cost, destroy an energy card. I could see an energy destroying a deck being a thing at some point, but it isn't yet. So this doesn't really have a place until it does. Meteoric Lance, 5 cost plus 11 damage. This is a bit above curve, but it's still just damage boosting at 5 costs, so not worth. Molten Helix, this is like the only half decent damage booster because it's 4 costs for plus 2 damage and double strike. You should just snap double strike on anything. It's very high cost, but if you want a damage booster, besides the low cost Fireball, like this is probably one of the ones I would go for because like you can snap it on a team attack and get a huge attack. Pyrus Strike, this is the other mono encourager, 2 costs for plus 3 damage if Pyrus plus 6 damage instead. It's just a 2 cost version of Inferno effectively. Not very good, and not good in general because it's less efficient than Fireball. Sifting Ashes, this is another really solid card. 1 cost, draw 2, and then you discard 2. So you just get to dig 2 cards deeper into your deck. And also set up, and also ditch stuff for like discard combo decks, but there isn't a whole lot of good stuff there yet. Song of Fire, 3 energy for plus 5 energy. So this puts you 2 energy ahead. There aren't a lot of relevant plays you can really do with this. There's a much better version of this in Resurgence that is super good and goes in literally every Pyrus deck. Talon Slash is 3 cost, plus 4 damage, and if your Bakugan's damage becomes 10 or greater, you draw a card. It's okay for a damage booster, but you don't really want it. That is all of the actions. Moving on to flips. In SR, we have Fierce Determination. This is our keyword block, so it stops non-Pyrus, and then if you're in Fury, it becomes free. This isn't good because Fury is not a reliable condition for most Pyrus decks. Fury is a thing that comes up when you build a deck around something like Hyperstorm Tease Ultra, which gives you a very big bonus for being in Fury. You're better off in using like Pact of Darkness. So that can be said about basically every flip. So the 0 cost flips are for Aquos, Ventus, and Pyrus this time. As always, these flips aren't terribly good. Use Block Outsiders if you don't have your keyword flips yet, but otherwise avoid them like the plague. A Lava Flow is 0 cost, plus 1 energy. This is obviously quite bad. You use it to get energy to play other flips you hope you flip after this. It's just like very RNG based, not very good. Pyrus Dominance is 5 cost, stop a non-Pyrus, and destroy an energy card. Destroying an energy card is pretty cool, but not worth a 5 cost flip. Spark is 1 cost, draw a card, then discard a card. This is just worth Accelerate because the on discard effects aren't very good. And that's it for flips. Lastly, we have heroes. First up, we have the Bakugan Elite Hero of Pyrus, which is Dan Kuzo. This is a pretty solid card, 4 cost. When you open a Bakugan, reveal the top card of your deck. If it is not a flip card, you may play it for free. Okay, so this is of course very good with the reroll effects of Bakugan Resurgence. I will go into that more in a future video. Yes. And of course it boosts Dan Drago up to 3k by its own effect. But if you're not using it in the sorts of decks that are abusing rerolling or abusing Titan Drago, or more likely both, you're probably doing both in that deck. But otherwise, like in a deck that happens to be playing Pyrus for some other reason, isn't carrying Drago, there's no reason to run this. You shouldn't really run this. That's a bit of a controversial statement. I know people act like Dan is the be-all, end-all, super strong card, and it is a strong card, but it's also 4 cost, and you're effectively giving up the turn you play it down to do nothing. Because most likely, the card you flip off the top of your deck isn't going to be something you can immediately that's going to like win you that battle. Your opponent is probably going to be able to overcome that with the 3 or 4 energy that they have at their own disposal. So you're probably losing that game. In addition to that, to deal with decks like Titan Drago, a lot of decks are probably going to be carrying the 2-cost hero removers, Garganoid's Gaze or One with Nature. I know I, for one, make sure that literally every deck I build has some amount of hero removal or evo removal, so I can deal with those Titan Dragonoid decks, and also other powerful heroes. So when you drop this down, you always have to accept the possibility that your opponent has a Garganoid's Gaze in their hand, and they're just going to drop that for half the cost and get rid of your Dan, and now you got literally nothing out of it. So there's just better things you can spend your deck space on if you're not a Titan Drago deck. We'll get to what that is in a moment, but first we have an awesome rare, Duran Dane, at 11 costs. When you play this, you deal 5 damage to your opponent, and all your Bakugan get double strike. So obviously, very, very strong effect. If you want to abuse the Chaos Maxisaur Evo from Bakugan Resurgence, this is probably what you would gun for. Free 5 damage is pretty good, and free double strike. That's all pretty good. But it's not a terribly good card. Then we have E, also an awesome rare. This is pretty solid. It's a hefty cost, it's 5 costs, but every time you open a Bakugan, plus 3 energy for the turn. So this will just get you tons of free energy. Like, get one down, and then, okay, you have 8 energy every turn to spend from this point onwards. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But it's also like, it's 5 costs and can be taken out by 2 costs that people are probably going to be carrying to deal with Dan. So that kind of kills it. Okay, so this is the 4 cost I would recommend running in any Pyrus deck if you're not running Dan. Instead of Dan, if you're not running a Titan Drago deck, is what I meant to say. So Mac is 4 energy. It applies the Might of Cyndeus effect the turn you play it. Now, this is important. That goes on the stack, and like Mac does not need to stick around. Mac does not need to continue to exist. Your opponent can Garganoid's Gaze or One with Nature this, but the Might of Cyndeus, Victor is determined by damage instead of beat power, is still going to be applied, which honestly makes it stronger than Might now, because Might can be negated and this can't unless your opponent's running this super specific card that is Deep Illusion. And in addition to that, all your Bakugan get plus 2 damage. Now the important thing to note here is it's not like, say, on China Riot, where it says all your attacks get plus 1 damage. This is your Bakugan have plus 2 damage. So one, that is relevant for the Might of Cyndeus effect. It's going to count towards winning the battle by highest damage rating. And two, it also affects every single one of your Bakugan. So when you make a team attack, that team attack isn't being boosted by 2 damage by Mac, it's being boosted by 6 damage. So it's a pretty big deal. This is a super strong card, easily the best hero in Pyrus' disposal. I put it in basically every Pyrus deck I run. If I'm not running, like, unless it's a deck that has like low damage across the board, like the deck I just drafted up, revolving around Flaming Fists and Pyrus Serpentine's Core. Since all the Bakugan in that deck have base 1 damage, Might and Mac obviously don't work very well there, so I don't run either one there. But otherwise, since Pyrus Bakugan tend to have high damage, Might and Mac are perfect fits for the decks that you run Pyrus Bakugan in. Then we've got Marco, 3 cost, Fury. If you have no cards in hand, plus 5 damage to your attacks. Just a damage booster, not very good. Barbara Kuzo is 3 cost to draw a card if you have no cards in hand at the end of the turn. These can't stack, but what will happen is if you have multiple of them on the field, they'll both proc at the end of the turn. The first one will see you have no cards in hand and let you draw a card. And then the second one will go to resolve, check the condition of no cards in hand, see you have a card in hand, and you won't be able to draw. So just gonna make that clear. Yeah, this is budget Strata / BR Shun, I guess. If you want to run a deck that needs draw power, and don't want all the other draw power options you could possibly have, I guess run this, but ideally don't. It's not really worth running. Build Kuzo is 2 cost. You draw a card when your opponent plays a flip card. Relaunch on your opponent. Most decks are only going to be carrying 3 to 6 flip cards. This isn't going to be proc enough. Just run something like Stradarshan. Not very good overall. Yeah, that is it for Pyrus. Pyrus is a faction with really weak B power boosting and above average damage boosting, but that means that it doesn't have a whole lot of great cards. However, it does have some very fantastic cards. There's nothing quite like Might and Mac in the other factions in the game, and those tools are extremely powerful. Inferno Wings is also a very solid card, though it is now significantly worse than it once was. Really, the entire faction in Battle Brawlers is carried by Might and Mac, so get your hands on those cards if you can, because those are very, very potent cards that have a long life ahead of them. With that said, that's going to be it for this video. I'll see you guys next time with Ventus. This is Hunter Surge, signing off.